Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business News Afternoon Report for Monday, the 30th of September 2024. I'm Sean Aylmer. Every afternoon, we've got the 5 stories that happened today that you need to know about. Story number 1, the S&P ASX 200 hit a new record today of 8,285.2 points, finishing the day 0.7% higher at 8,270 points. For the September quarter, the index is up 6.5%. That's a pretty good 3 months. Materials and energy stocks led the way today as the price of iron ore continues to rise and oil also bounced. BHP was up 2.5%. Fortescue Metals Group jumped 3% and Rio Tinto finished up 2%. Woodside and Santos both rose 3%. The big banks were mixed, while Telstra was the worst of the large caps, finishing down 1%. Casino Group Star Entertainment was the best performer. It rose 19% after its 43% drop on Friday. And there might be industrial action at Qantas by the engineers, but that hasn't hurt the national carrier share price. It's trading near a record level. In corporate news, Liontown Resources jumped after completing its first shipment of spodumene concentrate to China and starting spot sales from its Kathleen Valley project in Western Australia. New Zealand's Synlait Milk also rose despite posting a massive net loss for fiscal 2024. And Dental Group Pacific Smiles slipped slightly after its board rejected a takeover bid from Genesis. Story number 2, the federal government's coffers are looking better after a cut in spending helped boost last financial year's surplus. Though another one this financial year is very unlikely. Federal Treasurer Jim Chalmers today said the final budget position for the 2023-24 financial year was a surplus of $6 billion that came from reduced spending rather than higher taxing. This financial year's deficit is forecast to come in at $28 billion, down from the initial estimate of $47 billion. Dr. Chalmers said the $172 billion turnaround in 2 years was the biggest nominal improvement in the budget in a parliamentary term ever. He said debt had been reduced by about $150 billion, which means something like $80 billion less in interest payments on that debt. Personal income tax topped $331 billion last financial year, though. 52% of the federal government's total tax take due to strong employment growth and bracket creep. That's a record level of contribution from personal income tax to total revenue. Story number 3, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has warned that Australians do not want radical ideologies in the country. He said the government continues to call for a de-escalation of the conflict in the Middle East. He was speaking ahead of a cabinet meeting and following pro-Palestine protests over the weekend in both Sydney and Melbourne. The protests were allegedly gate-crashed by pro-Hezbollah protesters waving flags of the terrorist organisation. Mr Albanese said what happened was worrying and Australia does not want people to bring radical ideologies and conflict here. Foreign Affairs Minister Penny Wong condemned any support for terrorist organisations such as Hezbollah. She said it threatens national security and fuels fear and division in communities. Opposition leader Peter Dutton called for the Hezbollah flag wavers to be arrested immediately. Story number 4, productivity levels have fallen, with labour productivity returning to the weak trend in the years before the COVID-19 pandemic. Amid a surge of workers entering the care economy, labour productivity fell by 0.8% across the June quarter, according to the latest quarterly report from the Productivity Commission. In the year to June 2024, productivity rose by a modest 0.5%. According to the quarterly productivity bulletin. Deputy Chair Professor Alex Robson said it marks a return to weak productivity growth. That's bad news because productivity is a way of alleviating inflation. He said Australia's productivity deadlock has persisted through 2 very different economic environments, one pre-COVID, one post-COVID. It suggests policymakers need to pay closer attention to the deeper structural issues at play. And story number 5, Israel has launched a wave of airstrikes against Houthi rebels in Yemen, dramatically widening its offensive against Iranian-backed militants. It came 2 days after assassinating Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah in Lebanon. The Israeli Defense Forces said the attack against the Houthis involved dozens of warplanes and targeted power plants, ports and other infrastructure. Israel also launched dozens of fresh strikes in Lebanon and vowed to keep up its offensive against Hezbollah, according to the Financial Times. Over the past 2 weeks, Israel's offensive has killed more than 1,000 people across Lebanon. That's according to the Lebanese Health Ministry. The Houthis have launched missiles and drones at Israel, merchant shipping and US naval vessels in the Red Sea ever since October 7. That was the day of the attack by Palestinian militant group Hamas, a fellow member of the Iran-led axis of resistance. That's it for the afternoon report for Monday, the 30th of September, 2024. Don't forget to hit follow on the podcast and find Fear and Greed on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, TikTok, and Facebook. Join Adam Lang and I tomorrow morning for the Fast 5 by Fear and Greed, the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your evening.